Welcome to This Explainer. Today, we're going to explore the massive, completely invisible journey of products. We're going to pull back the curtain on how things actually get from a brilliant idea right into your hands. We'll be focusing heavily on the incredibly complex, highly strategic world of marketing channels and how they deliver true customer value.
Seriously, take a second and think about the last thing you bought online. What invisible journey did it take to reach your front door? We just click a button, right? And we expect a box to appear on our porch in 2 days, completely oblivious to the massive web of global distribution, logistics, and partnerships working frantically behind the scenes to make that magic happen.
To make sense of all this, we've got a clear mental map for today. We are going to cover the power of disruption, the value delivery network, organizing the channel, designing distribution, and finally, mastering modern logistics.
Section 1. The Power of Disruption. You really can't talk about modern distribution without talking about the companies rewriting the rules. Take Airbnb. Get a load of this number, 7 million. In a little over 14 years, Airbnb built a global network of more than 7 million listings across 220 countries and regions. But here's the absolute wildest part. They did it without owning a single hotel room. No way, right? They fundamentally disrupted an incredibly traditional industry simply by innovating the distribution channel itself. They match people who need a place to stay directly with people who have room to spare.
And this brilliantly illustrates the critical difference between disintermediation and channel disruption. Disintermediation is simply cutting out the middleman, like a producer selling directly to a final buyer. But channel disruption, that's way bigger. It's when radically new types of channel intermediaries completely replace the traditional ones. Airbnb didn't just remove travel agents. They displaced the entire concept of traditional hotel chains as the required intermediary for lodging. It's a total game changer.
But hey, it's not just startups causing disruption. The giants are adapting too. Take Costco. They are a strict membership-only big-box retailer, but they realized that solving the complex challenge of immediate last-mile delivery required flexibility. So what did they do? They partnered with Instacart. Suddenly, non-members can buy Costco products without even stepping foot inside a warehouse. Costco adapted its channel, utilizing a brand new partner to reach new customers and really highlight the value of its bulk products.
Which brings us to Section 2, the value delivery network. For a really long time, businesses had this basic make and sell view. They focused on a very linear supply chain. But today, successful companies think in terms of a value delivery network. Think of it like a giant cooperative ecosystem. It's the company, its suppliers, its distributors, and ultimately the customers, all partnering with each other to improve the performance of the entire system.
Okay, let's dive into this with a fantastic real-world example, the craft beer industry. Historically, alcohol in the US goes through a strict 3-tier system. And wow, the markups at each step are crazy. A brewer makes a glass of beer for about 70 cents. They sell it to a distributor for $1.20. The distributor sells it to the bar, and by the time you order that pint, the bar is charging you around $7.90 just to maintain their margins. Now, let's compare that indirect channel to a direct channel. When craft brewers saw their volume dropping in that traditional 3-tier system, they decided to open their own tap rooms and brew pubs. By selling directly to you, the consumer, for that exact same retail price, the brewer's margin absolutely skyrockets to an incredible 90.2%. This stark contrast perfectly explains why producers are so highly motivated to rethink and redesign their distribution networks.
Moving on to Section 3, organizing the channel.
Whenever you have this many independent businesses trying to cooperate in a network, it's not always smooth sailing. Actually, friction is completely inevitable, and that leads to what we call channel conflict. This happens when there are disagreements over goals, roles, and rewards among channel members. It can happen horizontally, like two competing franchises in the same exact town arguing over territory, or vertically, like a manufacturer and a retailer clashing over pricing or shelf space.
So the absolutely crucial point here is, how do companies organize to resolve this conflict? Well, they often form vertical marketing systems, or VMS, acting as a unified system rather than selfish independent firms. There are 3 main types. First, a corporate VMS, which is single ownership. One company literally owns the production and the retail. Second, a contractual VMS, which brings independent firms together through legal agreements, like a McDonald's or a Ford franchise. And finally, an administrative VMS. This is where leadership isn't through ownership or contracts, but sheer size and power. Think of massive retailers like Walmart dictating the terms just because of their immense market dominance.
Section 4, designing your distribution.
Now, what's really fascinating here is that distribution operates on a sliding scale based on the product. On one far end, you have intensive distribution. This is putting your product in as many outlets as humanly possible. Think convenience store candy. On the complete opposite end is exclusive distribution. This is purposefully limiting the dealers to maintain brand prestige, kind of like luxury cars. And sitting right in the middle is selective distribution, using just a handful of chosen intermediaries who are willing to carry the product.
But here's the catch. Choosing your distributors means they also get a voice in your business. Take the luxury outerwear brand Canada Goose, for example. They utilize a selective distribution strategy. While major department stores in their distribution chain, like Saks Fifth Avenue and Nordstrom, announced they would stop selling products made with animal fur due to shifting societal attitudes. This channel partner pressure ultimately influenced Canada Goose to end the manufacturing of fur products altogether. So your distribution design can quite literally change your product design. Let's hit Section 5, Mastering Modern Logistics.
Now we're moving from the abstract design of networks down into the physical, heavy-lifting reality. We honestly tend to ignore logistics until something breaks, right? Take lumber, a pure commodity. Recently, an unprecedented storm of supply chain factors combined to send lumber prices skyrocketing by an unbelievable 400%. For a massive commodity producer like Weyerhaeuser, this highlights just how fragile the physical movement of goods truly is.
Think about Weyerhaeuser's specific delivery network. They harvest the trees, which go to sawmills, then to manufacturers, then wholesalers, retailers, and finally to the end users. Even when demand for building materials is at an all-time high, if there are bottlenecks, like a lack of trucks or maybe tariff delays, getting raw materials to the mill or milled products to the wholesaler, the entire system chokes. Value is destroyed not by a lack of demand, but by a logistical friction.
So how do things actually move around the country? In the U.S., it's largely a two-mode race. Trucks dominate with nearly 40% of total cargo ton miles, offering really flexible, fast service. Railroads follow closely at 37%, cost-effectively moving massive bulk loads over long distances. Water carriers handle about 5% for slow, bulky shipping. Pipelines take 1% for specialized fuels. And air freight, though incredibly fast, it's so expensive it accounts for less than 1% of the total.
Managing this physical chaos is incredibly specialized, and that's exactly why we see the massive rise of third-party logistics, or 3PLs. These are independent providers, the FedExes, the UPSs of the world, who step in to tighten up overstuffed supply chains. By outsourcing this monumental headache, companies can free up their resources to focus entirely on their core business, making great products and building their brand.
And every single one of those 3PLs is fighting a war over this one major concept: the last mile. This is the final leg of the delivery chain, getting the product right to the consumer's doorstep. It is without a doubt the most expensive, most complicated, and most inefficient part of the entire distribution network. It's the ultimate battleground for customer satisfaction. Why? Because if the last mile fails, the entire invisible journey we've discussed today feels like a failure to the customer.
To perfect that final mile and speed up delivery, distribution centers are aggressively turning to automation. Autonomous forklifts and robots are taking over the repetitive, physically stressful tasks of picking, packing, and moving inventory. But, it does leave us with a really interesting question to chew on. As robots increasingly replace human labor in this massive, invisible ecosystem, what happens to the workforce? It makes the system undeniably faster and cheaper, for sure. But it's definitely going to fundamentally change the landscape of who actually builds these networks. Thank you so much for joining me for this explainer, and I'll leave you to think on that.